How do you know that you will hit your target? Let's dive into how to analyze a gap, close that gap, and make sure we really do get the results. Hello, I'm Tom. Welcome to my channel, where we talk about continuous improvement in an industrial setting. And for this first video of the year, I thought it fitting to take a bit of a good planning for the year type of video. Now, honestly, I do hope you already did this at the end of last year, but still a good reminder of some nice things to be doing, which is how are we going to make sure that we're actually going to hit those budget targets or those project deliverables or whatever target we put for ourselves, right? You may have made some good intentions for the year, so you can also use this in a more personal setting. I know I will be talking to you about that a bit more in the upcoming weeks, but this is more for your waste analysis, your loss analysis, your business improvement stuff. At least the examples we'll be using. The system can work for anything. And let's take the example of we're going to improve our OEE of a line. Right? It's not too important which KPI specifically we pick, but for all of your major KPIs, you want to do a number of things. And that is, we definitely want to know what is the target for this year. So for our machine, we have got a 60% OEE target. Then, of course, when we set such targets, you sort of want to know, is it realistic or not? Can we make it? For that, one of the main things you really want to know is where are we right now? Right? If you are at an OEE of about 30% and you think you will be jumping to 60 with just some continuous improvement or lean type of things, you're in for quite a tough ride. I'm not saying it's impossible, because definitely if you just have a new machine or a machine that's in a lot of trouble, you could get there, but it might not be the most realistic. But let's look back at where we were. Now, many companies will say we'll take the average of last year, the whole year. And while for type of accounting purposes, this is a very good method, I'm slightly critical of it. So what did we do? I suggest that especially for these type of KPIs, where are we right now? You have a look at the whole year as a reference. You can also do your year-on-year improvement for it. But to really know where are we right now, you take about 12 weeks. That's roughly a period. It'll give you a couple of ups and downs. It'll give you some stability, but it is also short enough to give you an updated version. And the teams, the improvements, the projects, the investments that you have been doing throughout the last year will mostly be in that number of the last about 8 to 12 weeks. And this line, in the last 12 weeks, it scored this nice 50. So we also sort of know we're going to be starting the year at 50, right? Right? Why would suddenly, 1st of January, all of the efficiency bump up and the results be great? No, that is not what we expect to happen. So now, in this goal thinking, it's going to be important, and have this discussion with your management. That 60 target, what does it mean? Are we happy if we meet that 60 at the end of the year, right? If here we are at 60, are we then happy or not? Or do we need to achieve an average OEE of 60 throughout the year, so over the whole year as an average? So if we talk about sort of minimally good, there are sort of two examples here. Right? Because this one sort of ends up at we will reach the budget goal in December. This one and that is neither of them is good or bad, but it is important that you know what is expected of you, right? So that is the first big question mark that we're going to put there. And again, you can work with both. You can even have a number of KPIs that are cumulative or average, and some other KPIs that are we have to grow toward. That is all fine as long as it is very clear for the whole management team, but also all of the other people really, linked to this KPI. And for OEE, that is definitely also the operators of those lines, right? What you are expecting. But now that we know that we expect something, right, we are going to see that there is actually a gap between what we want to achieve and where we are right now. Now, say we take this average approach, which I see a lot in business, where there is this implicit assumption that when we say 60% OEE, we bump it up from the 1st of January and keep it roughly at 60, with sometimes a bit over, sometimes a bit under, but it averages out, right? Almost all managers will understand that you're not going to hit it every day of the year. But many managers, especially those already removed from the actual production, they may very well expect you to sort of hit that from day one. Be careful of that. But we have a gap. And the gap, especially with the average, is actually quite big, right? We need to close quite a large OEE difference, or at least half of it, but very quickly. And we'll come back to that as well. So we have a target, but now we need to get some improvements there. We need to do things. And this is where you close that gap. So we have analyzed the gap. We have our current situation. Now, and as I said, right, you can use this for projects or for your own good intentions for the year, or stuff like that. For your goals, you can use this as well. You can use this for non-KPI goals. This is the current situation, and one of these, we'll take the top one, is your future situation. And there is a gap between them. That is the basic concept of gap analysis. And we can do it in a couple of steps. We can do it quite formally, but this is gap analysis. Now that we have a gap, we need to go and close that gap. So we're going to think of projects and improvements and things that happen, because honestly this line is not too realistic. Now what we're going to do is say, hey, wait a minute, that machine, we analyzed it, we analyzed the losses, we did an OEE breakdown. It has a lot of technical breakdowns, it's way too often, and our maintenance staff, they are quite confident that they can shave off a good percentage of those breakdowns. They found a few errors, they found a few technical things. They want to do a project on it to really get to the bottom of it, understand what happens in the machinery, probably improve, basic maintenance, improve inspections by operators, whatever is needed, but they have a project. And that maintenance project, that will give us about 6% extra OEE, which is nice. Now, the team leaders and operator, they've also been looking into the changeover times, and they have some ideas to reduce the changeover time, which of course creates more production time, more OEE. They also suggest a project. So also the changeover time, it's got a project. When we really dive into it, discuss with quality on what we can do with cleaning, and then with engineering, what we can do with all of the pipings, we can reduce the changeover time by so many minutes each time that it'll give us about a 6% increase in OEE as well. Hey, we are over, well, because we were at 50 and then plus 6, we are over the target. Now, if we were to be at this one here, at the end of the year we need to be at 60, that's quite okay. If we can plan these two projects to sort of start and finish in January, we'll also be fine. Maybe you have in fact started one of these projects already in November of last year, and you'll get the benefits quickly. But more often than not, these are 3-month type of projects, and we're going to plan them in the first or second wave or so. So you'll start in January, finish in March, April. We'll start in April, finish just before summer. if you finish just before summer, what will happen with these? Well, you will be roughly equal. Then suddenly the effect, well, not suddenly, but really at the end of that project phase, it'll go sort of up, and then again be stable. That is something you can sort of expect from this, right? And that's important to understand. Now, this here really does not average out what we need to do to make the average 60%. So what we'll do here is we're going to add an extra project on top. Planning also has a couple of things where they say, well, if we redo our planning, we'll have fewer supply problems, and we might be able to put things in such an order that you really get the most out of the machine. We expect another 4%. Now, with all of that, what we are getting is a total OEE that is quite a bit higher. So this is going to be our plan. But we're also going to plan when are those things happening. So let's say that we're sort of doing this throughout the year. This one immediately started in January, but when you start in January, you'll end up end of March with results. We'll start that one in April. So it'll run April, May, June. And then, we'll have a summer break. Let's not push people too much. This one will go from September till November. That means that what we see, and I'll put it in there in red, I mean it's not bad, but otherwise you cannot get the difference in colors, is what can we realistically expect? There's two things, and the first one is very clear. We're going to see step changes, jumps in performance. The second one I'll just give as a sort of a tip so that you know this happens, you use it to your benefit, but also I want to warn you about it because it can be a temporary effect. As soon as you are going to say, this line 5 is going to get a lot of attention this year, you will see performance improve by itself, sort of magically. If you put attention on line 5, you start reporting on it every time. People know it's important. People will start doing things around that line a bit more. But your operators might just go that little extra mile, but it's probably not even that effect that is the strongest, because they will try to let any of their lines run nicely. But it's also your supervisors and your team leaders who check on that line a little bit more. As soon as that one has a problem, it's one of our priority lines, they will jump to it. They will do a bit better registration of what goes wrong. Then it's your engineers and your maintenance staff. So the engineers were there for this breakdown problem. But if they are there and they see some misalignment, they'll think about it, they'll fix it, they'll do something. The quality department, they already know that they have to be in there in the next project, so they already start looking into it a little bit. Your senior management is already looking a bit more at the line. So all of the production problems and possible improvements, they are picked up a lot quicker. Reactions to problems, to the breakdowns and other OEE losses, they're just picked up a little bit quicker. Now, part of these improvements will become permanent, but be careful. Part of this attention will go away after this focus year, and you might lose it as well, unless you really anchor it. But okay, that's that secondary effect. The first effect will be that we start the year at about 50-ish. Then we do hope that our total organization, maybe our autonomous management, whatever, right, improves it slightly, ever so slightly. We get about a 1 or 2 or so percent. Then in the whole of March, I already expect this team to be showing results, right? Project not finished yet, but after about 2/3 of the project duration, you expect to already get some results, because that is the phase that the project should go from. Well, we've implemented the basic solutions. We have already restored the basic conditions. Now we do the solutions, And that last month is mainly for the last touches and getting it standardized and sustained. So you do expect already a step, and then another step. Oh, we need to end up here. So we end up roughly there. Then from April till June, we have a secondary project that's also running, and same effect, right? And then almost end of the year, we have another one. And that's where we end up. Now, with this, will we make it to average? Probably no. No. This is just not enough. Have a discussion. What are we going to do? We're going to pull this one forward or that one forward just to make the target. Might be good. We're going to rely on that focus of increasing it slightly just by having focus on there. These are good discussions. Right? But also a very important thing, and that is now that we have our full year target, this is the budget target, this is what people get their bonuses for and stuff like that. Right? Honestly, I really hope that your organization does not do OEE targets for financial bonuses. It's a different thing, not really for this video, but that creates so much incentive to mess about with OEE numbers, and OEE is never, ever your real goal of the business. It's a way to help you detect where you can get more output or fewer man hours or something like that, right? So, but okay, other video. When we get this is good, right? That's your budget goal, that's for the full year. But now on a more daily, weekly level. So your morning meeting, 1st of January, or actually 2nd of January, we're talking about the 1st. Is there 60 on your board? Many companies that I've seen tend to put 60 there because it is the big budget goal. But that's not really fair, right, to the operators and supervisor and who's in that morning meeting. You're not expecting them to do 60 yet. No, you expect them to do just over 50. So for the full year goal, keep your 60. But for your monthly goals, already go down. For your daily goals, follow this line, right? So your monthly breakdown of the budget really follows this planned line. Your daily, you actually don't even fully plan out for the whole year because you're going to look at what really happened. So maybe this team will do a bit better or a bit worse. But it's very important to make these your goals as well. So instead of the one line, make those steps in your KPI as well. And this way, you really close that gap and close that loop. And now, that one thing that I was still sort of hinting towards, this is a plan. But now what? Well, reality hits, sometimes for the better. And actually this team did better. They managed to get 8% of OE. So in fact, we were here. That's nice, isn't it? That means we have some leeway. We might even make our 60% average before the end of the year, or we can even overshoot a bit. Do we react to this? Well, yes. Maybe in this case, because it's a relatively slight upward improvement, we're not going to change the plan too much. We've got 2 other great teams lined up. We'll just do them. Now that one, it really failed, basically. They were able to do 1%, but even that, they really did not get their good, nice improvement that they hoped for. Just didn't work out. So suddenly, we're here. Way lower than where we expected to be this time of the year. This, what I'm doing here now, this is what we call closing the loop. It's sort of feedback on the effect of your project. Close the loop is a term that's used a lot as well in project feedback or in making circular economy, but that's a completely different topic. But closing the loop on your improvement project is where you first do that gap analysis and plan out what you do, the red line here, and then each month, week, whatever frequency, you check, are we actually still hitting it? And you have these moving targets, moving not just because you make them higher or lower, but because you did something to your process. And are we hitting them or not? And how are we going to react? So this team really failed. Are we going to pull that team forward? Are we going to make an investment? Did they find something in the process that maybe we can act upon? It just requires investments or a different type of approach. And are we going to sort of squeeze in another project, right? Are we going to say, okay, you only did that, so we now need to make an additional project that we squeeze into the mix? Management decisions. I'm not saying you have to, because, well, your manager may not like my answer, but sometimes you don't hit your plans, right? So you can have that discussion, but definitely do not let it be a surprise, right? A big part of Close the Loop is we look at it, we see if we are here right now, with this plan coming up, we are not going to reach our target. This is where you communicate to management, we will have a problem. Right now we're almost hitting that 60, but with this and our future plans, we're not going to make our full year budget goals. The plan we had is not working out. We have options for doing some extra stuff, may cost some money. We have the option of just accepting it. So have the discussion, and it can very well be that seeing this reality, higher up management also decides to keep the focus on the established priorities and sort of let this one slip, but knowingly, so already know and replan your cost for it. They may approve the extra investment. They may free up some resources from your central knowledge center, things like that. So to really get some engineers in there, they can help you to remove obstacles, or at least have that discussion on what are we going to do about it. And then we're having an adult conversation within our management layers about the performance of our processes and our factory. Super important thing to do in a good continuous improvement culture. So that is really that end of closing that loop of analysis, putting plan into action, and checking what happens. And this way we close our gaps and also finish that loop, close that loop of making sure it really happens. By having the moving KPI targets that are realistic at the start of the year, because I will tell you also what happens if you just put the end of the year goal there. At the 2nd of January, your operator of that line will report to their supervisor, well, we had 50% OE, which is in the red, but then again, we can't really hit that target anyway. Now, what if you would have had 48? Well, we're in the red, but we cannot really hit that target anyway. So you lose the quality of the discussion. Then, around April-ish, when the target should be 56 by now, or maybe even 58 if the project went really well, you don't want to lose these gains. But today we had 50, that's sort of normal, and we cannot hit 60 anyway. It's a really low quality discussion. But if you moved the OE target on the daily board to what is realistic, and say we had 50, okay, yeah, that is actually way lower than the 58 that we could do right now. What happened? What is wrong? Maybe one of the things we implemented is not working today. Then you have a discussion. But then also, rest of the year, what if at the end of the year we still have that 60 on the board and we hit 62? Your operator will say, look, it's green, great. But no, by that time they should have hit 66, for instance. So see why you really need to move the KPI targets along with what is realistic. And when you have year KPIs, you sort of set them once a year. But a daily KPI, it's absolutely normal that you reset that one a couple of times throughout the year. So that 12-week period comes to mind again. just to check where are we going and to adjust to proven levels, but also when we do a team, when that improvement project has implemented their countermeasures, they set a new standard, and with that new standard is not just work standards but also performance standards. At that moment, that becomes the new target. So any KPI can be changed roughly at its own frequency, right? So maybe a daily KPI you don't change daily, but like the year KPI, you tend to break up into months, and these are planned. And so those months, you sort of once or twice a year, you do a replanning. And think of these sort of logical time frames. I mean, this is not an absolute rule, but daily KPIs, you sort of set them at the weekly, monthly type of level. 1 or 2 logical frequencies higher. As we want to close that loop and make sure the results stick. Gap analysis, where are we? Where do we want to go? Do we actually want to go there or there? Then, when we have a gap, plan to close the gap by putting things in place. Now, a slight increase, you can say we'll do that through active management. Bigger increases, you plan investments or improvement projects or Kaizen events. Then you translate that plan into a timed target for your KPI. And so you include those jumps, and then you start monitoring the results, closing that loop on your improvement process. And when needed, you can adjust your steering. I hope that this gave you a very nice foundation how to now plan out your targets for this new year. I wish you a very good, fruitful and successful year, and hope you will like this video, subscribe to the channel for much more good stuff to come in this new year.